It's just past 2 in the morning on a cold February night. The stars are piercingly bright in the pitch-black sky as your train rolls through the North Midwest, far from city or highway. Internal heat can't quite block the stream of sub-zero wind leaking around the windows. Sitting across from you, the conductor tells you that you're the first passenger they've had since November. The year is 1986, and you are on the last unsubsidized passenger service operated by a Class 1 railroad in the United States. We all know the story. With the rise of the automobile after World War II, railroads were struggling to keep their passenger services afloat and wanted to get rid of them. This led to the government's creation of Amtrak, which launched on May 1st, 1971. Most railroads were happy to join the project, but there were a few holdouts. The Chicago, Rock Island, and Pacific continued to operate state-subsidized intercity trains to Peoria and Rock Island until 1978. The Southern Railway didn't join Amtrak until 1979, running its Crescent service independently until then. The Reading Company kept its Philadelphia to Newark Crusader service thanks to generous subsidies until 1982, which was far too long, but that's a story for another time. Fearing congestion from Amtrak, the notoriously independent Denver and Rio Grande Western kept the Rio Grande Zephyr running between Denver and Ogden, Utah until 1983, and the Georgia Railroad ran mixed trains until that same year, in exchange for generous subsidies and allowances from its home state. But in the Michigan Upper Peninsula, a very weird service somehow outlived all of these. Let's rewind the clock a bit. The Soo Line was a railroad in the Upper Midwest, formed in 1961 by the merger of 3 railroads, all subsidiaries of Canadian Pacific. One of them, the Minneapolis, St. Paul, and Sault Ste. Marie Railroad, had previously been given this nickname based on the phonetic spelling of Sioux. It was a good thing that I read this before I recorded the voiceover, because you know I was going to mispronounce that. The Soo Line, at the time of its formation, still had a few passenger trains. It was the law. Rural communities, founded long before automobile transportation was widespread or reliable, had to have rail connections to the outside world. But since, like many railroads, the Soo Line wanted to divest itself of passenger services, they made a compromise. They would stop running dedicated passenger trains, but on their 371-mile route between Neenah, Wisconsin and Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan, passengers would be able to pay for a seat in the train's caboose. And thus, we find ourselves in early 1986, sitting in the one bookable caboose seat on board Train 912, heading north towards Michigan's Upper Peninsula. The train left Neenah at midnight, beginning a journey costing $11.95, or about $32.50 today. Even though this train is still required to carry passengers, it hardly ever does. When Chicago Tribune reporter Bob Weidrich rode the train around this time, conductors told him that they usually had a passenger anywhere from once a week to once a month in the summer, almost always a railfan or a reporter, but they hadn't had any ridership since November. According to Weidrich, the line featured a few stops to drop off freight cars, including at a sauerkraut plant at 3:40 in the morning, and by 8:50, they had made it to Argonne, where he got off. This was a distance of 125 miles that a car or bus could have traveled in 2 hours. It's no wonder then that the Soo Line was allowed to stop this rather odd operation that same year, and thus, American privatized passenger rail finished dying its very slow death. Until these guys. So if you were alive at the time of this service, would you have ridden it? I know I would have. Are there any other oddities of passenger rail just like this left in the world? Let me know in the comments, and be sure to subscribe for more transit-related nonsense. Take care, everyone.